invite men over while he cooked for us. Last time he served dinner, then walked out forever. Hi, Reddit. I'm going through a lot right now. I never thought I'd be sharing my story out here, but here I am. But I must say, I'm not looking for sympathy, really. I've made peace with the fact that I may never get it. But lately, the weight of my decisions has been too much to carry alone. I read somewhere that writing things down might help me unpack the guilt, and I figured, why not here? Anonymity makes honesty easier. So here I am. My name's Leah. I'm 26, female. And if you knew me 2 years ago, you'd think I had it all together. I had a decent job, a beautiful home, and a partner that most women would kill for. But that's the thing. Sometimes it's not about what you have, but how much you appreciate and cherish what you have. And in my case, I did a really bad job with that. I hurt the kindest man I ever met, the only man who ever really loved me without trying to fix me or mold me into someone else. Mark. Mark and I met at a restaurant, and not just any restaurant. It was his. It wasn't much, just a little corner spot. You wouldn't notice it unless you were really looking. It didn't have flashy signs or Instagrammable cocktails, but every time I walked by, the scent of rosemary and garlic would stop me. One rainy Tuesday, I walked into the restaurant, mostly to get out of the cold. The place was empty except for 2 older women quietly sipping tea by the window. I sat down and started scanning the menu. I had this nervous energy because I was short on funds and knew I shouldn't be spending money, but my stomach was already growling. Mark walked up to me. I didn't know it was his restaurant at the time. He had this calm demeanor, like someone who never raised his voice even when things went wrong. He asked if it was my first time, and I nodded kind of awkwardly. Then he smiled and said, "Rainy days are on the house." At first I was confused and thought he was joking, but then he just brought me a bowl of creamy mushroom risotto and a small glass of wine, with no bill, just a folded napkin, and then he told me softly to enjoy. I didn't even say anything, didn't ask any questions, because I was too hungry, too cold, and way too tired to. That meal, however, was hands down the best meal I'd had in a long time, and he didn't try to make conversation. He just let me eat in peace. After that day, I kept coming back. I told myself it was the food, but really, it was him. Mark had this energy that made you feel like the world was slowing down. When I talked, he really listened, like he wasn't just waiting for his turn to speak. We got talking, and eventually I learned that he had dropped out of business school at 22 to pursue his dream of opening a restaurant. His parents thought he was crazy, but he made it work. He rented the tiny space with his savings and built the entire menu from his mother's old recipes. He didn't boast about his success. He didn't post flashy photos on social media. He just, cooked. And you could taste the care in every meal. Not long after, I fell for him. But he never made the first move. I did. One night, after staying late to help him clean up, I just kissed him. He looked surprised, but he didn't pull away. He just leaned into the kiss like he'd been waiting for it too. Soon after that, we started dating, and it was lovely. I mean, being with Mark was different. He didn't play games. He didn't disappear for hours or leave me on read. He didn't flirt with other women or make me feel like I had to compete. He showed up every time, like he was just really present. And I didn't know what to do with that, because deep down, I wasn't used to always having someone around. The peace he gave me wasn't something I was used to. I was used to chaos, and on and off relationships, nights spent crying on bathroom floors, wondering why someone didn't text back. I was used to fighting to earn love, which I never got in the end. But Mark didn't make me fight for his love, and that scared the hell out of me. A few months into our relationship, I started spending more nights at his place, and then more turned into most. Before I knew it, I had a drawer, then half a closet, and a key to his house. I told my friends I was moving in with a chef who made me breakfast every morning and left love notes in my lunchbox. They said I was lucky, and I was, but I took that for granted, and luck can't always save you from yourself. I had a decent job working in admin at a digital marketing firm. It was nothing fancy, but enough to keep me busy and pay the bills. The office I worked at was a mix of overachievers and underpaid 20-somethings who drank too much and partied even harder on the weekends. But I won't lie, sometimes I miss that world. Not the hangovers or the meaningless hookups, but the freedom. Just the illusion of being desired by multiple people at once. Mark, on the other hand, was steady and predictable. His life was just all mapped out. He went to church on Sundays, business on Mondays. He watered his plants every Thursday. He had 3 aprons he rotated like a religion. It was just a whole cycle. And over time, I started to get bored. Not because he did anything wrong. I mean, he was still sweet and all. Maybe a little too much. He rubbed my feet after long days, made me soup when I had cramps, sent me texts like, "Don't forget to drink water today." Or "The sun came out, thought of you." But peace to someone like me who was used to so much chaos felt off, like weird. So I started flirting again. Just a little at first, a joke here and a compliment there. Harmless stuff, or so I thought. The first time I brought another man into Mark's restaurant, it wasn't planned. His name was Daniel, a coworker who flirted with me way too often during lunch breaks. He was tall, charming, and a little arrogant. Everything Mark wasn't, a douchebag. He asked if I wanted to grab food after work, and without thinking, I said yes. Never really liked him. Don't even know why I agreed. I decided I'd take him to Mark's, but I don't know why I walked in laughing too loudly at Daniel's dumb jokes, and my arm brushed against his a little too casually, too. Mark was behind the counter wiping down trays. His eyes lit up when he saw me, but it changed when he saw Daniel. I quickly introduced Daniel and said he was from work. Daniel extended a hand. Mark, being his nice self, still took it and smiled. I could tell he was trying to read between the lines, but he didn't say a word. He just walked back into the kitchen and came out 15 minutes later with 2 plates of food for us. "Try the lemon butter," he said to Daniel. I watched them both closely during that meal. Mark stayed behind the counter, cleaning dishes he'd already cleaned. Daniel was too busy scrolling on his phone to even notice anything. When we left, Mark gave me a small wave. Not a kiss. Not even a touch. I told myself he was just being professional, but a part of me knew he was hurt, or confused, or maybe both. I don't know. But that should have been a warning, a signal to stop, rethink or something. But I didn't, because nothing happened. Mark didn't confront me. He didn't accuse me. He didn't even check my phone or ask questions. He just kept showing up like always, making dinner, leaving the porch light on when I worked late, refilling my shampoo before I even noticed it was out. So I did it again. The next guy was Chris, a gym buddy I wasn't even that into. I told Mark we were planning a wellness challenge for work and needed a quiet place to discuss ideas. Mark offered to close the restaurant early so we could have a quiet table by the window. He made us another nice meal. Chris gave it a 7 out of 10. Mark just nodded and cleared the plates. He didn't even look at me. By then, something in me had shifted. I started treating the restaurant like it was mine too, like it was some kind of private lounge where I could bring my little flings and be catered to like royalty. I began to lie to Mark constantly. I'd say, "This one's my editor. He's just a friend from high school." Or, "Old classmate, just catching up." Sometimes I'd even text him to pre-make something specific before I brought them in. I'd lie straight to his face, and he'd just oblige. Looking back, I'm really disgusted by my former self. The real breaking point, like the moment things actually started shifting beyond my control, was the night I brought Ryan. Ryan was different. He knew what I was doing, and he liked it. The thrill of sneaking around and of being the other guy. He thought it was hot. He even joked about it when we walked into the restaurant. "Your chef boyfriend gonna feed me too?" he said. I shouldn't shut him up right there and send him away, but I didn't. Instead, I gave him a playful shove and told him to behave, but Mark heard it, or at least I suspect now that he did. That night, Mark made us spicy pasta with shrimp and a light tomato cream sauce. I still remember the taste. It was perfect, but Ryan barely touched his plate. "Too rich," he muttered, pushing it aside. I was embarrassed, but Mark said nothing. He just quietly took the plate back and brought him something simpler, grilled chicken and rice. The whole night, I couldn't look Mark in the eye, but I didn't stop either. Not then. Not even after we left and Ryan kissed me right outside the door. I feel like Mark may have seen, but once again he didn't say a word. He just turned off the lights, locked the door, and went home. That night he didn't speak to me in bed. He just lay there, quietly scrolling through recipes on his phone. I turned away from him and stared at the ceiling. My chest was heavy, but I still didn't say anything or stop, because deep down I still thought I had time, that no matter what, Mark would stay, that I could lie my way out of anything. And when I say that now, I hate myself. Because how many times did Mark have to show me love before I stopped testing his limits? If I'm being honest, I don't even know what made me do it. Maybe I thought I was untouchable, or maybe I wanted him to see it. Not to hurt him, but to finally get a reaction. Because every time he said nothing, even though I know he may have suspected. I mean, it's not like he's dumb or something, because silence hurts in its own way, and Mark's silence was really loud. But I guess it was about time, because my last visitor was the last straw for Mark. I invited Eli over on a Saturday morning. I don't know why I did that. Mark was opening the restaurant late that day. He'd said something about trying a new risotto at home and wanted my opinion first. He asked if I wanted to invite a friend too. He'd make extra. And that's when the idea struck me. Eli wasn't just a fling. He and I had been messaging for weeks, meeting up once or twice behind Mark's back. And every time, I told myself it would be the last. But it never was. So when Mark offered to cook for two, I lied and said my cousin was visiting from out of town. He smiled and said he'd make his signature mushroom chicken and a bottle of red he'd been saving for a special night. I got back early from work that day and cleaned up a little. Then I put on a dress Mark always said made me look chaotically charming. Eli arrived with a bottle of cheap wine and a smirk on his face. He asked if this was the guy's place. By that he meant Mark. I nodded. Then he gave a very ridiculous laugh and rhetorically asked if Mark was cooking for us. Then he said something in the lines of, "Damn, you've really got this dude wrapped." I should have told him to shut up, maybe asked him to leave, but I didn't. I laughed and just played along. Mark came in through the back door with grocery bags in his arms. When he saw Eli, he didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. "You must be Leah's cousin," he said. Eli snorted and said, "Sure, let's go with that." For a second, I couldn't feel my heart anymore. Like, what the hell, Eli? But Mark didn't respond. He just nodded and went to the kitchen. Eli went over to the couch and turned on the TV. I followed him, laughing nervously and trying to brush it all off. One movement led to the other, and then, God help me, we started kissing, right there on the couch. I knew he was just a few steps away, chopping vegetables and prepping sauce. But I still did it. I let it happen. But then the whole place went quiet. I opened my eyes, but Eli kept kissing my neck, completely oblivious. I turned my head, and there he was, Mark. He calmly walked forward and dropped the plates of food on the table for us. Eli finally pulled away from me, sensing the shift in the air. Then Mark looked at me and in the softest voice said, "Dinner is served." I tried to speak. I wanted to say something, just anything. But then he took off his apron, folded it neatly, and set it beside the plate, then walked out the front door. He didn't shout, nor call me names, and didn't cry either. He just left. And that, somehow, hurt more than anything else he could have done. I didn't move for a long time after the door shut. Eli sat beside me awkwardly, pretending to scroll through his phone like nothing happened. Then the next minute, he opened his mouth and mumbled something like, "He didn't seem that mad." I didn't respond, because I knew that was it. Normally, Mark would never walk out on me like that, no matter what I did. But I guess this was just too much for him to handle. After a few minutes, Eli stood up, muttered something about texting me later, and left. I didn't say goodbye. I was still lost in my thoughts. I just sat there on the couch, alone, with the wine, with the dinner Mark had served. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept expecting him to come back, just storm in and demand answers. Maybe ask who Eli was and why I'd done this to him or something. But the hours dragged on, and the front door never opened. I texted him around midnight. I said I was sorry and begged him to come home, but there was no response. I tried calling twice, but it went straight to voicemail. By morning, I woke up hoping to find him beside me. I imagined he'd come back late at night and just lay in bed with me. But his side of the bed was still cold and untouched. I went to the restaurant, but it was closed. A handwritten note on the door said it was closed indefinitely. I asked the bookstore owner next door if he'd seen Mark. He said Mark left early that morning and just handed him the key and told him to toss the trash at the end of the week. The rest of my walk home, I tried calling. Still no response. When I got home, I saw a for sale sign in front of the house. That evening, a courier showed up at the door, and 2 cardboard boxes, both labeled Leah. Inside were my clothes, my toiletries, a couple of books I'd left by the bed. Everything I owned in that house. There was no note, no message, nothing. I checked the bank app on my phone, and my joint card had been disabled. My name was also off the lease. It was like I never existed in his life. I tried reaching out to mutual friends, only to realize we didn't have any. Mark had always been more introverted and private. The only people who really knew us as a couple were the customers at his restaurant, and I wasn't about to show my face there again. I messaged him every day for a week, sometimes with long paragraphs, other times just a please. But still nothing. The silence started to eat me from the inside out. I tried distracting myself, binging shows, going out with friends, even drinking a little too much, but nothing worked. Everything felt numb. Eventually, Tanya, my closest friend, let me crash in her spare room. I didn't tell her everything, just that Mark and I had broken up, and she didn't press. I think she knew. But even there, in someone else's house, I couldn't escape the guilt and sadness I felt. Every time I saw a man cooking in a movie, I thought of him. Every time someone posted a plate of food on Instagram, I imagined him behind the scenes, chopping, stirring, all with the quiet love he carried in his hands. I even caught myself walking past the restaurant sometimes, hoping maybe he'd come back. Maybe he'd reopen it. Maybe I could catch a glimpse of him through the window. But it remained dark and abandoned, just like me. Weeks passed, then months, and still, nothing from Mark. He had disappeared completely, and somehow, for me, that was worse than rage or resentment, because at least anger keeps you connected. But silence severs permanently. Trust me, I'm speaking from a bad experience. Eventually, I started losing my edge. I lost focus at work, missed deadlines, showed up late and left early. HR called me in one Friday and said they were going in a different direction. Just a fancy way of saying I was no longer useful. I tried to freelance a little, but nothing stuck. I didn't have savings. Mark had been the one who helped with budgeting. Rent at Tanya's wasn't much, but I hated feeling like a burden. So I packed up and moved back into my childhood neighborhood, a tiny, dusty one-room space with a broken ceiling fan and a bed that creaked every time I blinked. I tried dating again, thought maybe I could distract myself, but every time someone tried to impress me, I found myself comparing them to him. Mark never had to try. He was just it. Then one day, in the middle of my downward spiral, a friend from college sent me a link. She claimed she'd seen Mark on the internet. It was a video. And yes, it was Mark. Except he looked cleaner, stronger, and lighter. Just fresh overall. The title of the video made me freeze. It said something like, "The recipe I'd never cook again." The video had over 1 million views. He began by sharing a bit of his story, how he started cooking, the restaurant, and a hard personal experience that pushed him to close the business and start fresh. He didn't mention me by name, but he didn't need to. He spoke about love like it was a meal, about how some recipes stop working, not because the ingredients are bad, but because the fire burns out, and how no matter how much you season a dish, if the person at the table doesn't appreciate it, it's time to stop cooking for them. Thing is, he said a lot, but then he said something I'll never forget. I used to think love meant serving others, even when you're starving. Now I know, real love feeds you both, or it's not worth making. By the end of the video, I was sobbing uncontrollably. All the pain I had given to him, he took it and made something meaningful. He didn't curse me, no, he didn't expose me. He didn't try to destroy me either. He simply became better, without me. I started to keep up with his channel, and it blew up. He started teaching cooking classes online, got brand deals, sponsorships, a book deal. People loved him. The comments were filled with admiration. There were so many comments, but the one that I remember the most is one lady saying, "Husband material, who hurt this guy?" Because I knew I was guilty. I hurt him, and now he didn't want me anymore. I could have built a life with him, but instead I served him betrayal on a silver platter and watched him quietly walk away. That's when I decided I'd send him one last message, an email. Not to beg nor manipulate him, I just wanted to get closure for myself. I'll attach the content of the message here for any of y'all interested. Mark, I know you'll probably never read this, and if you do, you have every right to ignore it. I just want you to know that I'm sorry, not for losing you, but for not appreciating you when I had you. You gave me the kind of love people pray for, and I treated it like a convenience. You were peace, and I was addicted to chaos. I hope you're happy now. I hope someone looks at you the way I should have. And if you ever find it in your heart to forgive me, thank you. But if you don't, I understand. I really do. I never got a reply, but a few weeks later I saw a new post on his page, a short reel, him cooking soup on a rainy day, soft jazz in the background. At the end, he looked into the camera and said, "Sometimes the best meals are the ones you stop making, so you can finally start feeding yourself." Every time he says stuff like that, it feels like he's talking directly to me, but I think I knew that was it, his final goodbye. Well, guys, it's been a wonderful journey sharing my life with y'all. Anyone got any advice for me? Maybe on how to become a better version of myself generally, or something. Final update. Hey guys, it's me again. This is the only update you'll get from me. As I said earlier, I'm not here to play the victim. I just wanted someone to hear the truth before I let it go completely. I'm working now. Nothing fancy, just another small admin job at a printing shop downtown. But it's honest. I don't date much anymore. Not because I don't want love again, but because I finally realized I have to fix what's inside me before I can offer anything to someone else. Mark taught me that, and you guys taught me that with your not-so-kind comments. Mark didn't really scream or shame or seek revenge. He just left and got better. And that's a kind of strength I'll spend the rest of my life trying to learn. To anyone who read this far, thank you, really. And to anyone out there lucky enough to be loved by someone like Mark, don't wait until the plate is empty to realize what you had. Some people only cook for you once. This is the end of the road for us, guys. Bye.